Good morning, everybody. This is Dimitri, CryptoParadise.consulting. Very happy to be with you today on this Monday morning. Today, I'm going to have let's say, a philosophical reflection about how we can observe that when humans absolutely want to achieve a result, they often get exactly the opposite one. And to illustrate this, we're going to take three very simple examples. One will be, as every parent know in the world, when you try to really forbid one of your child to do anything, you will realize quickly that your child will be obsessed by actually doing it, trying to find the limit. This is in human nature. And so the more the result you want is to have your children being forbidden to act in some way, the more you will get actually the exact opposite, which will be that your child or your children will be obsessed by the idea of just doing it. Simple. Okay, this is one very simple example. I think everybody knows it and observed it already. A second example will be how many European countries, or not only European actually, many countries in the world are trying to create a redistribution system among people by a fiscal policy, which is to actually confiscate some wealth from some people, usually wealthy people. Well, that would be the logic, even though the logic is sometimes not really there. But the idea is to confiscate some money to some wealthy to distribute it to others who are in need, depending on, of course, the definition that is given to all this by some politicians. But that's another story. The story I wanted to point here is the fact that by doing so, we actually realize that the countries, and I'm going to take the example of one country which I know the best, which is France, where we can see that this solidarity that I will call a forced solidarity among people actually creates the absolute opposite result that the one you could expect, is the fact that people are absolutely super individualist and absolutely not naturally solidaire among each other. And this was brought up to me, and I realized this many years ago when I met a Brazilian guy who came and who was living in France since 2 years, and this was in the 90s actually. And he pointed to me how France, he had this image when he was living in Brazil before he came to France about France being, you know, the perfect country, redistributing wealth among its people in a very justice way, which was very appealing for him. Now that he was living in France since 2 years, he told me how unbelievable it was for him to have simply a neighbor who never ever gave him any word, didn't even say hello in the morning, who was his neighbor, and only after 6 months of crossing him every day, you know, he actually gave him a hello. And this for him was the illustration how French people were completely individualistic and absolutely not solidaire. And he realized how in Brazil, a country where there was no wealth redistribution, especially at that time, and where people were left more or less with themselves, well, there was actually a real solidarity among people. And in Brazilian neighborhoods, nobody would be left alone if he was in trouble. He would be helped by others. So this is another example. And as a third example, we're going to now go to our main subject, which is finance, and we'll see how, and that's a story I read, I put you the link below, on Zero Hedge this week, and it's about how central banks are, since 10 years now, are trying desperately to create inflation. Why? Because they see debt rising, soaring to crazy levels, and of course the best way for somebody in debt to reimburse without pain is to reimburse in a currency that is that being inflated, because you just reimburse with monkey money. Some debt that was where the value was much higher when you took the loan than the day that you reimburse it, where your currency is just being debased. So the idea is it's an obsession by central banks is since 10 years that they see those debt levels is to try to create inflation. Now, how do they do that? They have a way of thinking, which is to say that by having zero interest rates policy, savers will very quickly realize that it makes no sense for them to save anymore, because they don't get any return on their savings. So what they think would be a natural answer to that is that people, instead of saving, would now start to spend their money, creating velocity and eventually creating inflation. Well, again, what we observe is exactly the opposite. And what it is that actually savers who maybe 20 years ago could use a certain amount to save and to get some money aside for their future, for their old days, let's say, are now seeing that what they need is to save even more money just to get the same result, having some money aside for their old days. And actually the reaction is exactly the opposite of the one that you could hope to have, is that people will actually save more and will spend less and less money just to make sure they still have a little something for their old days. So it is again the exact opposite of the result that was expected, is the fact that you have a velocity that is going down and you have actually a deflationary spiral that is now in movement. And that's the story, is that we see with these zero interest rate and money printing policies that the result is actually deflationary. And that is quite amazing. So this was my reflection of the day, and it all brings me to one major reflection, which is that actually trying desperately to go against human behavior, which I will call the market. The market is simply the reflection of human behavior. And human behavior is actually nothing more than what nature is. And human beings, by trying to go against nature, are actually doing something absolutely wrong, because it always creates the opposite result of what they would expect to receive. And finally, my reflection is to say that real ecology, we're now seeing so many environmentalists in the world, and they always try to make you believe that you're going to obtain results by going against the market, against human behavior. And I think this is wrong. I think a real ecologist today is somebody who accepts that markets are absolutely the reflection of what ecology is, which is human nature. Human nature is nature. It's natural. So that was my reflection of the day. If you like my videos, don't hesitate to subscribe to my YouTube channel or directly to my website, cryptoparadise.consulting. I wish all of you a very nice week. Bye-bye.